Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast, coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so happy that you are part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. We are so excited to welcome back two wonderful guests tonight. Lori Orlinsky, the author of Being Small is Not So Bad After All, and Faith Goldstein, the author of Gorillas Night Out. We have so much fun. You are absolutely going to love this episode. Like I said, you are going to love this episode, and you are also going to love being with the Reading with Your Kids podcast at the Chicago Toy and Game Fair. Experience the latest and greatest toys at the annual Chicago Toy and Game Fair on November 23rd from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and November 24th, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. at Navy Pier in the great city of Chicago. You know, at this fantastic fair, kids can play with life-size toys and games from all over the world. They can meet inventors, authors, characters, enjoy interactive stage shows, and so much more. And for being a member of our Reading with Your Kids family, you get a special discount. That's right. You can save $3 off the price of admission by going to shytag.com, CHITAG.com, and use the promo code RWYK, Reading with Your Kids, RWYK at checkout, and you can receive $3 off each ticket. You can buy as many tickets as you want. Invite the whole neighborhood. We would love to see you all. That is November 23rd and 24th, Navy Pier in Chicago. It's the 17th Annual Chicago Toy and Game Fair. Joining us on the line right now from the windy city of Chicago, where tonight it's not windy, it's beautiful out. Our guests are chilling out in the backyard, enjoying their friendship, enjoying time alone without their kids. It's a pleasure to welcome back to the show two Reading with Your Kids certified great read authors. Lori Orlinsky, the author of Being Small Isn't So Bad After All, and Faith Goldstein, the author of Gorillas Night Out. Faith, Lori, how are you?
We're great. Thanks so much for having us.
Yes, we're so excited to be here on tonight.
I'm excited to have you back, and you know, it's we oftentimes will have authors on who are working on the same project together, and that makes a lot of sense. Or and just a few weeks ago, we were speaking to a couple of bloggers who put together this wonderful blog. This is a little bit different. You've come together as an author team that are working on your own books, but you're working together to kind of promote your books, but also to promote literacy. Faith, how did that come about?
You know what? We actually, when we met through Facebook, through a group, and we started messaging with each other because our books had both just come out at like the same time. And, you know, we started sending each other messages and then eventually met in person. And it was just like, amazing meeting Lori. And ever since she's been like my best author buddy, as I call her, my BFF author buddy. It's just wonderful having someone like Lori whose background is marketing while mine is in education. So I had no idea about anything in the marketing field. So Lori's just been a godsend, teaching me everything and showing me the ropes and helped me so much with everything.
And Larry, that's one of the things that has really touched me about the author community, especially about the kidlit author community. And to be honest with you, it's one of the main reasons in the early days of the podcast when there wasn't really anybody listening and it wasn't breaking even, that kept me going, is that this community of children's authors, it really is a community, and it's very supportive and accepting, and I'm so many of the authors who've come on the show have become friends and friends of each other through listening to the show, and also friends of mine, and it's just a beautiful community. Has that been your experience too?
Oh, I agree. I call Faith like my sister author, and there's less than 1% of the population can actually say that they wrote a book, and even less than that can say that they wrote a children's book. So, it's amazing to go through the process of writing and promoting a book, to have an ally that, has your back, that celebrates your wins and vents with you over returned books. And it's so much fun to also do some team events. We've established a really great flow together, both at charity events and bookstores, and we really promote the best of each other. And as Faith said, I help her with marketing, and Faith is a former school teacher, so she has created all my educator materials for me.
And it's a brilliant idea to team up with somebody, and I'm just going to go out there and suggest any author that's listening, I think you'd be wise to follow Faith and Lori's example here, because just look at writing is part of the entertainment industry. Yes, it's educational and there's great benefits but it's still about, entertaining people and getting people to buy your book. And so there's marketing to it, there's creativity. And if you look at all the other areas of entertainment, no one's going out there by themselves. You get Taylor Swift, you go, oh, I'm going to see Taylor Swift. Well, you're going to see Taylor Swift and her musicians backing her up, and all the techs that are working on it, and this company and that company. And, so people are out there working in collaboration, helping each other be creative, be successful. So hats off to you, and I really think folks should follow your lead.
Thank you so much. And we're even thinking of some of the events that we do, even packaging our books together. We don't look at what we do as competitive. We look at it as, books that complement each other in their themes. They're both rhyming books. They're both imaginative. They're both for the same age group. And so, we might even kind of dual package them for events. And, Faith and I also have a big dream that one day we can collaborate and actually write a story together.
You mentioned that both books are rhyming books. Faith, why did you choose to write in rhyme?
You know what? I like the way the story sounded in rhyme. I thought it was prettier told in rhyme versus like prose. I also, because there's so many benefits to rhyming with the children as well, and the literacy that it promotes and whatnot. So that's why I thought it was just going to be easier and go with the playfulness and vibe of the story.
Mm-hmm. And Lori, the same question to you. What was it that inspired you to write in rhyme?
So my book, Being Small Isn't So Bad After All, is about a little girl who faces height discrimination. And I wanted the book to be a precursor to a larger discussion about self-acceptance, self-confidence, and bullying. And it's kind of a heavy, tough topic to tackle. So I think doing it in rhyme took maybe an uncomfortable topic and made it a little bit more approachable.
One of the things that I want to talk to both of you tonight about is, how do we inspire kids to get into reading, especially now it's, the kind of the beginning of the school year, or school has been back in session now for a month in a lot of places, but it still may be hard. Some kids may be finding it hard to get back into that rhythm of getting into reading and it not being a chore and helping kids just develop a love of reading. Faith, as an educator, do you have experience with rhyming books as being a more accessible to kids, that they're more apt, that especially younger kids are more apt to develop that love of reading through rhyme?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, in terms of like teaching children to read, when you do with rhyming words, it makes it much easier because, for example, like there's the at word family, and in the at word family, there's cat, there's hat, there's bat, and so on. And it's an easy way for the children to sound out the easy words. And like with the word bat, you take away bat and put a C and it becomes cat. So in terms of learning to read and write, it's really, it makes it much easier for the children. And I found that too when I was teaching my students to read, that they really did appreciate the rhyming books. And it also has that predictability factor with it because, you can anticipate based on the previous word what what word may come that's going to rhyme with it. So it definitely makes it easier in that way. And, it's also like, good in terms of, you could just do so many different activities with it, as well.
And the other thing, Laura, that you mentioned was, your book has a serious tone to it. It's fun, but it also has a seriousness in that it addresses the issue of bullying. And you said you found it would be easier for kids to kind of approach that through a rhyming book, and it wouldn't, they wouldn't get as defensive, perhaps.
Right. I think, a lot of times with topics like bullying, it's awkward when parents, go to sit down with their children and talk about bullying. It feels like a whole to-do. It might feel like the child is in trouble. And I think reading a book like Being Small Isn't So Bad After All doesn't have to be that way. You could sit down and read the book with your child, and they have no idea that you're really giving them a lesson on self-acceptance and bullying. You can just have a natural discussion after reading the book about, hey, so the girl in the book here felt that she was too short to go to school. Do you have any, is there anything about you that makes you uncomfortable, and how can we tackle that? And I think naturally it just worked, and especially, the rhyming part in the book made it a little bit more fun for the kids, and they can be more engaged. As Faith said, there's that predictability factor, like they're kind of always guessing what comes next.
Mm-hmm. And Faith, too, as we're talking here, something occurred to me. One of the things that was so perplexing, my mom went through Parkinson's, and it was a very, very difficult experience for all of us. And, she forgot who we were and, forgot a lot of her words, but she was always able to sing. And songs that she hadn't heard for years and years and years, she could sing, and she could remember them, and she remember all the words. And some of the doctors said, well, we don't exactly know what's going on, but she's using a different part of her brain. Different parts of our brain respond to song, and that's where that's coming from. And the Parkinson's isn't affecting that yet. Now, I know neither one of you are neurologists, but do you think that maybe one of the benefits of rhyming is that we're using more parts of our brain as we're, listening to songs and listening to rhyme and getting the rhythm, and is maybe that's part of the key?
Absolutely, because when you're listening to rhyming songs and poems, it gives you a mental image in your mind of what you're hearing. So it expands the imagination, and as well for adults and children, obviously. So yes, absolutely.
What do you both think about, it's this idea we touched on a little bit, it's, we're probably getting close to the end of the first quarter in a lot of different schools, and everybody starts off school, we're going to have a great year, and parents are real excited, but now, the first marking period is coming to the end, and we're not, this is a little more difficult. Third grade's harder than I thought it was going to be. Fifth grade's harder than I thought. High school, oh my goodness, it's really, really hard. What can parents do with those kids to kind of build them up and to help them to start looking at reading, looking at learning as a fun, loving thing that they can do for themselves, instead of this oh my goodness, I'm getting graded, I'm getting judged every day, and I'm always failing and coming up short?
I think, one of the most important things to instill a love for reading in your child is to model the behavior you want them to see. I read every single night. I have a book in the car with me so that when we make a quick stop and my husband gets gas, I'm reading. I read all the time. I listen to audiobooks. So I think, if you're first and foremost, if your children see that you're reading and that you're enjoying it, I think that they're going to enjoy it too. Mm-hmm. I also, we're fortunate in Chicago that we have so many of those cute little borrowed library bookshelves throughout the city. And so anytime we pass one, we always stop the car and I let my kids put a book in and take a book out, and it exposes them to tons of different genres of books. I am sure to make sure that what they're reading is age appropriate, mm-hmm. but, we don't just stick with picture books. I mean, my daughter we started reading chapter books together, and I think the importance too is letting doing it as a family and making it a family fun activity. And every time we go to the bookstore, unlike the times that we go to Target, I say to my kids, get whatever you want as long as it's a book, because I think, kids can't have enough books these days, as opposed to the Target trips where, unfortunately, I get had there.
Yeah, and I just wanted to piggyback with what Lori said, especially about modeling reading for your child. Research shows that that is one of the best and most important things that a parent can do to instill a love of learning in your child, because they're so impressionable and they want to do what your children want to do what you do. So when they see you doing that, it shows that you genuinely enjoy reading and find it to be a pleasurable activity. So they're going to be more likely to partake in this at all. And also, it's really important to present the kids with high quality, engaging literature that's going to stretch their imagination and excite them. There's so many books out on the market, but they're not necessarily all quality books. So it's important to look through and see the ones, like I said, that your children really are going to enjoy. Look for books about their interest, because if the child's interested in what they're reading about, they're going to want to read it. They're going to be more tempted to read it as opposed to reading about something a subject that's not important to them. Mm-hmm. And it's also important to expose your child to a wide variety of reading materials. It doesn't need to be just books. It can be the Kindle, ebooks, newspapers, magazines, whatnot. It doesn't, comic books, graphic novels. It doesn't matter what it is that the children are reading, as long as they are reading, because the more you read, the better the reader you become.
Mm-hmm. And Faith, too, talk a little bit, if you could, from your experience as an educator. We all know that reading with our little ones and reading the rhyming books with our little ones is so very important, and there's so many benefits to it. But I think sometimes we forget, Lori was mentioning that her and her daughter are starting to read chapter books together. A lot of times parents, once kids begin reading independently, they sit back and they go, oh, well, they can do it on their own now. They don't want to read with me. Talk about some of the benefits, if you would, that you see with parents continuing to read aloud or co-reading the same book together with their older kids, with their middle school kids, with their high school kids.
Such a benefit, because obviously it's a perfect time to come together and bond with your child. And no matter what grade I taught, the kids still love to hear books and they like being read to. And as they get older, you can also co-read the books together. The parent reads a chapter, the child reads the next chapter. It's just I think it's an important part of a child's routine. And it also, again, it helps to instill a love of reading, because it makes it a nice, pleasurable activity done together. Yeah.
I was just mentioning to my wife, my amazing niece came over the other day, and she had put off some of her physics reading, her summer physics reading, until the other night, which was the night before school started. And so she had all this reading, and she was putting it off, and she came over to the house, and finally we just said, why don't you read it aloud to me? And she did, and she went from not wanting to touch this to spending close to 2 hours reading this physics book with me. And I think and we had a lot of fun. We were able to joke about different things. But when she would come to something that she didn't understand, and this is the first physics book that she read, so there was a lot of stuff that she didn't understand, it was real easy for her to say, what's that? What's this geosynchronous orbit? What is that? And so we're able to talk about it, whereas if she was reading it by herself and she was coming to these things and there wasn't anybody really handy to ask, then, she may have put the book down.
Absolutely. And it also, when reading to someone else, it also provides the parent with the opportunity to ask comprehension questions to make sure that the child understands what they are reading. So not just that they're reading, but what they are reading as well. And so that's something, too, that can be offered during that time together.
And I think it's also, as a parent, I just think reading out loud with your child at bedtime is such a special way to preserve their innocence. I mean, it goes so fast in the blink of an eye. It really does. I can't believe my older daughter's in first grade. And I think there's something to be said about like still wanting to sit in your mom's arms or in your mom's lap and read a book together. Mm-hmm. It preserves their innocence. And I think it kind of gives you all the feels.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Laurie, I wanted to talk to you. We talked about, this being the time of year where a lot of kids, getting that rude awakening and, oh, this is a lot harder than I thought it would be. This is also the time of the year when a lot of bullying issues are exposed. And you are someone, went out of you. This is an issue that's really important to you, to the fact that you became certified by the Center of Disease Control, StopBullying.org, and bullying prevention and response training. As an expert in the field, what do we need to look for as a parent to see if our kids are either being bullied or witnessing bullying? And if it's going on, what are the kind of things that we need to do?
Well, I think first and foremost, we need to make sure we establish the kind of relationship with our kids where we can have trust and honesty and keep those lines of communication open. And that's why, I always suggest starting with some kind of book that promotes self-acceptance, because I think self-acceptance is the best way to kind of avoid falling victim to bullying. If you are a kid that's short, if you're a kid, that might have different color skin or, a big nose or things that might make you susceptible to bullying in today's day and age, I think learning how to appreciate, talking to your kid to appreciate them for their differences and show them the benefits that they have because of their differences. So I think it first starts with a discussion with your child about self-acceptance, and then kind of gently introducing, what can you do if you're in this situation, if you saw someone being bullied, and kind of talk to them a bit about scenarios. I think role playing with your kids is great, but, also it's very important that if any child ever feels threatened physically, to always tell, the first thing they should do is always talk to a trusted adult, whether it be an administrator, a teacher, a parent, a neighbor, someone they feel comfortable talking to. But, another thing that I always say with bullying is, I think avoidance is always a great response. So as long as, if a child is being bullied, I would tell that child, does it happen to be in the same hallway every day? Does it happen to be at a certain lunch table? As long as a child isn't going out of their way to completely circumvent the bully, I think just kind of, avoiding the bully is always a good thing. Bullies want attention, and if you don't give them that attention, I think it deflects some of that.
Really, really important words. And I think that whole training, if you will, to help our kids accept themselves and to learn how to love themselves, it starts when we have them on our laps when they're little babies and we're reading rhyming books to them.
Absolutely. And I think, as I said too, role playing is so important. Mm-hmm. I made sure to talk to my child about, my book actually led to a discussion about differences. And she said, well, there's one girl who's not from, I don't know where she's from. She doesn't speak a lot of English. And she sits by herself at lunch. And I said, well, what can you do, Haley? And she said, well, I think I can make her my friend, and I might not be able to talk to her, but I can draw her pictures. And it's funny, this year, so this was last year, and this year the girl's mom actually emailed the school and had her daughter's class switched to be in Haley's class because Haley takes away the girl's anxiety. And to me as a parent, it started with the conversations that we have, and it started with the role playing. And children are so impressionable at a young age. And if we show them what kind of behavior is appropriate and we ask them to put themselves in someone else's shoes, I think that they'll respond positively.
Yeah. Well, I am so proud to know Haley through you. And and my book, The Great Maratini, is all about reminding kids that the greatest transformation of all is transforming feelings of caring into action. And that's what Haley did for that little girl. So after the show, I'm going to ask you for your address so I can send Haley a copy of my book, The Great Maratini.
Oh, she would love it. Please make sure to sign a copy.
Oh, of course. I've had my wife teach me how to do that, but we'll definitely do that. So we talked a little bit about Lori's multi-award winning book, Being Small Isn't So Bad After All. Faith, just remind us what Gorillas Night Out is all about.
It is about 4 gorillas who escape from the zoo one night to have the ultimate night out on the town. They visit some fancy clothing stores where they get into some mischief and monkey business, as I like to say, and they enjoy massive amounts of ice cream, eating out the entire ice cream store. And they also make sure to hit a gymnasium where they get a chance to practice all of their gymnastics moves and flips and climbing and whatnot. And the mystery is to see if they make it back to the zoo before the zoo opens for the day.
Awesome. And Faith, where can folks go to learn more about Gorillas Night Out?
I actually just launched a website that's faithgoldstein.com. Where there's a lot of different teacher resources and activities and how it can be implemented in the classroom, as well as some games and puzzles for the kids and an introduction to the gorillas. It can also be found on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, now Target.com, Walmart.com, and my publishing house, which is Indigo River Publishing.
Awesome. And Lori, where can we find out more about Being Small Isn't So Bad After All?
Actually, the best place to go, as well as connect with me, is through my Facebook page. It's facebook.com/being small. Just like Faith, my book is sold on Amazon, Target.com, Barnes & Noble, also Walmart.com, and Barbara's Bookstores in Chicago.
That's excellent. We've had such a great night talking about literacy, talking about a lot of things, talking about the value of modeling for our kids reading and how we can talk to kids about bullying and the value of rhyming books and so much more. And we also found out what a little hero Haley is. We've been talking to the authors of Being Small Isn't So Bad After All, Lori Orlinsky, and the author of Gorillas Night Out, Faith Goldstein. Both books are Reading with Your Kids certified great reads. Faith and Lori, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much
for having us. And I also wanted to mention, if any of your listeners are in Chicago around November 23rd and 24th, Faith and I actually have a booth together at the Chicago Toy and Game Fair, and we're so excited about that. We're going to make a little reading nook and a little place where kids could, kind of take a little break, read and color and interact with us.
That's great. And what date is that again?
So it's Saturday, November 23rd and Sunday, November 24th. It's the Chicago Toy and Game Fair, and it's held at Navy Pier.
Oh, Navy Pier is an awesome place. Awesome. Well, I'm going to see if I can get out there.
Oh, that would be great.
We'd love that. You'll have to stop by.
We can all ride the Ferris wheel during a break.
Yes.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Victoria Allen. She is the author of Buddy the Bear. Earlier on, I mentioned the fact that Lori and Faith are both Reading with Your Kids certified great read authors. They submitted their books, Being Small Is Not So Bad After All, and Gorillas Night Out, to our evaluation team. Our Reading with Your Kids certified great read team, it's made up of parents, kids, and educators. And if they believe that a book is worthy of 4 or 5 out of 5 stars, it becomes a certified great read. Now, I have to tell you, full disclosure here, Faith and Lori's books both received 5 stars from our panel. Now, this is a super way to let the world know about your book, and more importantly, to let the world know that your book is worthy of their consideration. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of books published every month. It is so hard for your book to get noticed and for your book to be considered. Space on a family library is precious real estate. Families want to make sure that any book that they add to that library is going to be a great addition. It's going to be something that their kids are going to love to read over and over again. And like I said, the Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read Program. If you would like to have your book considered for our Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read Program, you can go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the Great Reads application. Find out what the program is all about. once your book becomes a certified great read, we give you all sorts of wonderful tools to help promote the book. Check it all out, readingwithyourkids.com. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so very wonderful. Lori Orlinsky. Be sure to check out Being Small is Not So Bad After All. And be sure to check out our special episode, our special Storytime episode, where Lori's daughter Haley came on and read Being Small is Not So Bad After All with me. Also want to thank Faith Goldstein, the author of Gorilla's Night Out. I want to thank my amazing producer, Fatima Khan, for everything she does to make this show so very wonderful. Check out her blog at readingwithyourkids.com. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all of the support that she gives me, and I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so much for taking the time to make the world a better place, and you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.